done. It has not gone unnoticed. The fact that you've been a player and a partner with other funders is a critical part of the opportunities that kids do have in this county. So I thank you for that. And I'm not sure we had anybody else specifically scheduled to speak. We're open to questions.
Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Kent? No? All right. Thank you.
Hi, Hope Woodhouse, 199 Island Creek Drive. I'm on the CSAC Main Committee, Grant Committee, and Chair of the Children's Needs Assessment, and am President of the Johns Island Community Service League. So, and I'm also part of this group, and I'm the numbers geek, or one of the numbers geeks in it. So, thank you for the $2 million. That was a game changer, and it really has made a difference. This thing we're talking about today is really just the next step, but I just want to sort of comment on a couple of things that are like get me all excited about scaling. Karen mentioned the doula program. Doula program started off wanting to serve 40 women. Well, right now they have funding for, 70 women as of this year, but the demand is 200. 200 women in the doula program is 20% of the births in the county. The outcomes on the first 75 that have been served is a significantly lower cesarean rate, less referrals to the NICU, higher breastfeeding, all sorts of positive outcomes that are saving this community. So I'm actually working on a proposal with them right now to get them stopgap funding before they can come and get increased funding from CSAC or the hospital district or somewhere else, because this program is so compelling. There's lots of other programs like that. My sort of heart is always in the early childhood area, because the earlier you intervene, the better. This community has started a number of high impact home visiting programs that need to be scaled. There's huge need, and I think there's lots of places to spend it properly. And I think the reason we should be doing this is we have to start really being strategic in the way we look to solve the problems, which gets back to what Michael said, is we do have to collaborate, and we do collaborate with the other areas that are trying to raise money. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Woodhouse? No? Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? No. Yes. Mr. McPartland, it's good to see you. Welcome.
I guess we're almost in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Afternoon. And again, thanks for addressing this issue. And I want to thank Mr. O'Brien for bringing this forward. I'll tell you, again, I'm Bob McPartland, live in Sebastian, Florida. I'm also the Department of Children and Families Administrator. Been involved in child abuse for almost 20 years. I sit on several of the committees as well as CSAC. I want to thank the board, because when I first started on CSAC, I think the funds we gave were $625,000. But over the course of time, we've gotten up to the $2 million, and that's done a tremendous job. And also, we have a very generous community that donates an awful lot of money for a lot of the children's issues that are going on. Some of the boards that I sit on are, unfortunately, I sit on the Child Abuse Death Review Committee, and then I've just been invited by the Department of Health to get involved in infant mortality, because Indian River has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the state. So I believe Mr. Solari mentioned a death was the equivalent of about $9 million when they get run over by the train. And we're talking a number of children, probably a dozen or more each year, that are dying. And some of the things, I hear, we might be butting heads this money with the school. But sometimes when you get to older, it's like you're chasing your tail. You already have the problem that's going on, and you're trying to address it. What we're looking to do is the infants and building parental capacity, and also mental health. There's a need for mental health services for infants, believe it or not, before they get to the school age. So this money would address so much. And I think, and also because I cover the 4 counties, you failed to mention that Okeechobee County has a Children's Services Council. And years ago, they voted probably at the 80% rate to re-up that Children's Services Council. They've done tremendous work in these other counties. In St. Lucie, we got a gang prevention program, because also some of this money will address teen risky behaviors. What are the teen risky behaviors we're talking about? Teenage pregnancy, a lot of them grow up, wind up coming back in the system. Like I said, chasing your tail. A lot of those children get involved with the Department of Juvenile Justice. The only thing they graduate is there to the Department of Corrections. And the amount of money that it costs this community, this money is, I think this is the most proactive thing I have ever seen put together. And I mean, I understand it go out in front of the voters, but I think this community would support it. And I can't even imagine the impact that this would have. Because a lot of the organizations now, if there's money available, there might be organizations outside this community that are willing to come in here and step up some program that we haven't even thought of. So you're just scratching the surface. But once again, thank you very much. Any questions, I'm always available.
Thank you, Mr. McPartlin. Are there any questions? All right, yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I think it is after 12 o'clock now. It's been a long time since I've been here. My name is Margaret Ingram, 4125 61st Avenue. Been a citizen of this county forever. Have a former student sitting up there, Mr. Jason. So you can see, I've taught 35 years in this district. And when I see my students up there as representatives of what we do in the district and supporting our children and always standing up for what is most important. As a former state teacher, it's so important. I don't know if y'all remember when I was a state teacher. So I'm a former state teacher and Krista McAuliffe Ambassador for Education. So I am always speaking on behalf of education. And I also stand in support of the Children's Trust, because still, even as a retired teacher, I'm still out there with kids. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it even better, because if we have programs supported like we're talking about, we can do a much better job. And just to see what is happening out in the community with our children, even with what you're already given, we thank you for that, but it's just so many more needs out there with children early, you know, moms and babies, and I'm still working with those all the way up to college and even our senior citizens. So I stand in support. That's what I want to say. And when it comes time to have all of those facts and more information that is needed, I will be right there. But I just want to thank you for allowing this issue to be put on the agenda and for the support of the community. I know if you take it up that we will get. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And thank you to Ms. Ingram for bringing me back to my internal second grader.
You're doing a great job.
Anybody else?
Teaching.
Yes. And
Teacher.
anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay. Commissioners.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just a couple additional comments. You know, ever since I've been the commissioner appointed to the CSAC, I've always thought it's one of the best things that we do as far as looking after taxpayer dollars. The committee does have a needs subcommittee, and they periodically review the community to see where needs are, and then the grants are based upon those priority needs in the community to direct the funding towards those needs. Our grant review committee, they go out and during the entire year, they meet with the different agencies, you know, visit them in their office or wherever they're doing their work, and you know, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do and follow up on it. And it's things like that that I think that have made this so successful, is that, and again, these are all volunteers, you know, they're doing this on their own time, but I really think it makes the children's services some of the best tax dollars we spend because of that involvement and oversight. CSAC did meet last night. We had a very good discussion with the new school superintendent, Dr. Moore. I'm looking forward to some of the insight he will bring as far as how you look at different outcomes, and we had some talk about that on the committee last night, that while I think we do a good job measuring what the agencies do, I think there is consensus of the committee that, hey, we can look at that and do even a better job and really define and make sure that we're very tracking those outcomes and making sure we're getting our dollars worth. So I think that continues, and that's a big positive. I will tell you this, y'all know my wife is a teacher. She came home yesterday and a little girl was visibly upset and crying and apologized to her because she didn't get her work done over the weekend. And she asked her what was wrong, and she said, well, we had to go look at 2 houses over the weekend. And she said, well, you know, okay, why is that so bad? And she said, well, my parents are getting divorced. And so I've seen friends that have gone through divorces and their kids, things like that, whack them. You don't see it, you know, it's not visible until years later, and then you see the behavior of that child. But you go back to that divorce, that breaking up of the family, and these younger kids, you know, 10, 11, 12, it just whacks the tar out of them. And if you're not working with them and dealing with this and helping them, then you lose them. They go off the end, and they end up not down a good road. So I think this is a very good move for the county to take. I do give a lot of consideration to a couple things Jason said, particularly I think with maybe a time limit on it and with some type of reauthorization, you know, like a 15 years, I think, like we do with the sales tax. I think that'd be a good addition and give some of the commissioners maybe a little bit more feeling that, you know, having it reauthorized instead of just open-ended would make a lot of sense to some of the commissioners, and I think that could be one change that we add to the draft wording we have here before us. But with that, Madam Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that the board direct the county attorney to take this draft ordinance and referendum, include any comments or cleanup that he feels is needed to reflect the board's discussion here today, and include the language that somewhere in there would be a 15-year authorization, and that we go ahead and ask the county attorney to bring this back to a formal public hearing for adoption.
I'll second that.
And I do have some discussion.
Yes.
You want me to begin now?
Yeah.
Okay,
certainly.
it's great. Some days I feel like I'm here to give the minority report, and today is one of those days. And this is one of those type of things where you almost have to begin. I love children, but that doesn't mean that I believe that this ordinance is the proper way of going, because one of the things I also love is good government, and a representative and a representative democracy, and I don't believe that this is the right way to go. I'll make the full-blown talk on that another day, but given the time and the way this backup is, today I've just got some suggestions how, in my view, this can be either improved or some of my greatest concerns. And with all the comments I have, I only had time to actually go over 2 sections, the sections expenditures authorized and the children's trust makeup. So again, there's a lot of, for me, problematic materials, but I'll begin with expenditures authorized, and it'll be a little tedious because, you know, while my notes are somewhat compact, if I just read my comments, the audience won't have any clues to what I'm talking about, so I'll try to read the provision also. So my first one is in what I'm calling item 1 under expenditures authorized. It says to allocate and provide funds for agencies in Indian River County which are operated for the benefit of children, provided they are not under the exclusive jurisdiction of the public school system. Exclusive ties back to some definition which I read a couple times. I don't understand it. And in that definition, it refers pursuant to the duties of the school board pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the state of Florida. Well, there is no one in this room who really understands what the Constitution and laws of the state of Florida say about the education section, Article 9 of the Constitution, and I don't think there are 5 people in the state of Florida. So I'd simply like the word exclusive removed. Number 2, to support the programs and services which will enhance academic achievement and assist all children to perform at grade level in core areas such as reading, math, and science. And this is one of the areas where I'm focused on what I believe is good government. The state constitution and the laws of the state of Florida is clear on one thing. The education of the children of the state of Florida is the business, according to Article 9 of the Constitution, of the local school district and the school board, not the local board of county commissioners. Item 2 is clearly the responsibility of the school district and school board. If the school district needs more funds for educational programs, they should be using their taxing power and their expertise to pay for and implement them. Item 3 through 8, I have no particular issue with them, but item 9 for me is very problematic. It is way too broad. Individuals' information, I'll read number 9, to collect information and statistical data which will be helpful to the county in deciding the needs of children and to develop techniques for monitoring the efficacy of funded programs and services, including but not limited to the gathering of data, measuring outcomes, goal effectiveness, and research. I believe it's very problematic. It's way too broad. Individuals' information is in jeopardy from a growing number of people and organizations. I recently read that while HIPAA prevents my wife from getting medical information about me without my express permission, Google has, through health organizations, received medical information with the individual's identifiers from millions of people without the individual's authorization or even their knowledge. So I find this gathering of data by any government or other agencies incredibly problematic. Numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14, for me, certainly go forward and feed the unaccountable bureaucracy which is going to be formed and take tax dollars away from the services which could be given to children and other residents. According to item 14, which is to provide for administrative expenses limited to the Children's Trust in amount not to exceed 10%. According to that, administrative costs could be soon over $920,000 a year. Add to that an executive director, secretary, and other employees traveling and using the language of item 11, consulting, coordinating, and collaborating with local, state, and national entities which promote best management practices, professional standards, and advocacy. Well, you soon have more than $2 million of the $9 million going to pay for the unaccountable bureaucracy and not providing services to our children. The fact is, Indian River County already has a great staff which already very professionally provides a wide range of children's services. Our county staff presently provides the bureaucracy needed for CSAC to function, and there is certainly no reason to have a duplicate bureaucracy, which is what will occur. So I think those type of things should be excised from any possible ordinance. The second item is the Children's Trust Advisory Board. As an elected official, I believe that we owe significant duties to taxpayers and residents of our community. We have a responsibility to make sure that every tax dollar is spent wisely and for the benefit of our community. Our responsibilities and duties are not things that I believe morally ought to be delegated away. I believe that this board would effectively be doing just that if it went forward with the Children's Trust Advisory Board as presently proposed. I'll note that we are not talking about a small amount of money. According to the backup, the trust will soon be responsible for, if the board supported the full $500,000, $9,288,051 annually, with, at least in good economic times, the amount rising every year. Putting the $9,288,051 in perspective, that is 9.4%, almost 10% of our general fund fiscal year 1920 approved budget. It is about 37% of Vero Beach's general fund budget and is almost 3 times Fellsmere's general fund budget. But for me, the most important statistic is how huge a piece of the county's discretionary funds the $9.3 million actually is. Presently, and I understand the margin, anybody could argue the numbers, but these are the numbers I got from our staff. Presently, our non-discretionary spending totals, by one estimate, $72,811,327. And that's out of just over $98 million, almost $99 million. These non-discretionary spending items are things like constitutional officers, public safety, state agencies, things over which we have no effective control. That leaves $26 million and $41,000 for discretionary spending. The innocuous sounding 1/2 mil is equivalent to 36% of our discretionary expending. This is crucial for the government of Indian River County. Remembering that the discretionary spending portion of our budget was significantly greater in 2008 than it is today, and if we have another significant recession, set of hurricanes, or the death train's LNG bomb goes off in Vero Beach, we may well not have the financial flexibility to deal with the problem. To properly serve all our constituents, we need financial flexibility, especially in unanticipated times of trouble. My point here is, even if the bill does go with, say, $250,000, it is still a lot of money, and the board should take an active, hands-on approach. So my recommendation is that if the board sets up a trust, that it follow the MPO model that we already have successfully running in the county, and its membership should include all 5 elected commissioners, 4 elected representatives from a municipality, and perhaps 2 to 4 other members. So these are just some of the problems, as I mentioned, that I see, and some recommendations. With time, I hope to add more to the staff's work on this to get a better document. But I think that before we can go forward with this and present it to the citizens of Indian River County, a lot of work needs to be done with it so that we are fulfilling our duties to our constituents and present a responsible proposal to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to make comments on this?
I have a couple. Want to thank you. A lot of this goes back to the original challenge grant that Ms. Woodhouse and Ms. Scully in the back helped kick off a number of years ago. It really kind of got the ball rolling to get us to a higher funding amount. So thank them, and they're still here looking out for the kids. I also get a sense of assurance when I see Hope Woodhouse come up. I think she counts other people's money more than she counts her own in terms of accountability. So when she comes behind something, that gives me a level of comfort. I do have a few questions that when we bring this back, I did ask for, and I'm guessing the other commissioners saw the similar financial analysis, how do we compare to this or that? In looking at the other counties, how they're structured, if you take out this will have a bureaucracy element of some sort. I think Martin County's has a lot more, and I'm trying to just look at what is where will we end up dollars per child number comparison. And I think some of this goes back to is the people helping deliver children's services, is the 1/8 of a mil doesn't provide certainty. And without certainty, you don't know, is it going to change? This is an alternative path to get there. I don't know if there's a hybrid in between or something that gives certainty and addresses some of the other concerns. And this is a curiosity question. I don't know why Brevard County disbanded their funding for children's services last January. And I don't know the answer to that. I tried to do a little bit of research and couldn't come up with the driving force behind it. There may be something to learn that didn't work that we should take into consideration. Obviously, Brevard County's 450,000 people, I think, or bigger, and their commission, I believe last January, voted to no longer fund children's services, and I don't know the route to that. So when we come back to have our next review of this, it would be good, at least for me, to look at the numbers a little bit more. What is the scalabilities in the programs? And I know you can't identify every new program, but there's probably some you have your eye on that if we had additional dollars, and how do you prioritize that? And I know that would be something Hope would be very good at, at least walking me through on, because of how well she deals with numbers. So I think it's and then to fall back on something Jason said, and I don't know how many other commissioners have been visited by one or the other group that has spoken, dealing with environmental lands, reauthorization. Currently the county in public land use is about 35%. Now that does include, parks and large parcels that the county's bought. It also includes smaller strips like road right-of-ways, which adds up to a small component. But when you add in the water resources, about 50% of the county is already in public stewardship, whether it's for right-of-way use, park use, or preservation areas that's set aside. So we do have a large, you can't go too much further because then you start chipping into your tax base and you don't have anything left to help generate your revenue if you keep putting unlimited amounts into environmental preservation. I think there is some room to add some more strategic pieces, but not to the scale that some of the other folks have been talking about. And then the other one, I don't know if they're going to come about. I don't know if Jason had a meeting with this second entity or not, but it's almost like he who gets there first kind of gets the first shot at a millage. We do have some things dropping off in roughly 2 years on some debt service. It would be nice at the end of the day if there's some way that the impact is not too great for those residents in the community and business owners that, a $100 difference or a $20 difference really makes a difference to some people. And I got a call last night from a couple of folks about this item today. And I'll just say let's say he sells widgets, and he said, do you know how many widgets I have to sell to make enough money to pay an extra $100 in property taxes? And I was kind of amazed at how much business he has to do to generate that much net dollars to cover his tax increases. So I think with some more information to kind of clear out, their concerns and also questions kind of combined together. I think we can do some more good with these dollars, but we have to keep in mind the small business owner, the fixed income person. Who else, is next week another $500,000 person going to show up at the podium and they have their request? I don't want to overburden the taxpayer as well. So thank you with that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleischer, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the exploratory board for meeting and presenting and giving all the information, the packet being available, following up. I do appreciate that, and looking at the concept again. I've had a lot of years in law enforcement, and one of the I don't know if I believe it's a benefit of that occupation is you get to meet people, you get to see people, you get to understand a community, you get to understand needs, and I've been there a lot, and you can see the challenges that people are confronted with and find resolve. So it compels you to belong to different organizations to try to help and create a solution. And I hope I've done that. But with that, getting back to this discussion, there are needs. I'm not denying that there's any needs. Looking at some of the history that we were confronted with, and I believe Bob brought it up, I think we were dealing with about $650,000, somewhere around there. And it was bumped up to $2 million. And I think greater good was done. I hope greater good was done. It was a big step forward, a big obligation from the taxpayer, from all the organizations, and from the hardworking citizens as well, and a big decision for us. now confronted with this, we're looking at increasing the bar. In order to increase the bar, during the conversation, I said, well, I need to qualify it and quantify it. I need to know if this is the right thing for our taxpayers, the right thing for our citizenry, and is this a justifiable solution to an existing challenge? Well, the need is always there. I need, for me, to commit the taxpayer to be on the hook for a few $100s a year for their household. We're not out of the woods yet. We're doing better. We have a better economy. But we've already adjusted from 600,000 to 2 million. And that was just a couple of years ago. Have we seen the success and failure of that investment into our future? Have we seen the shortcomings? Have we seen, I don't know if we have that quantifiable information for me to say, taxpayer, you have a decision to make, and in 75 words, you're going to read something, and it may have to do with the word mill, which 90% of the community doesn't know what that word means. 95%. Maybe even some staff members. Took some of us a little while to understand what a mill was. Unless you studied Latin suffixes and prefixes, you don't even know where the origin of the word is. But a lot of people don't understand what the impact is until the switch is pulled. We're talking just a few months up the road. In 75 words, how can we explain what we need to do, where we need to go? You all have taken a couple of hours. We have. And I think we need more time. In all fairness, I don't believe that we have enough to say, taxpayer, just vote, and you're locked in for 15 years. And if the rate remains the same at the existing value, all things remain constant, we're looking at $100 million. $100 million. Do we really have that much shortcoming, failure in our society? $100 million if we would go 15 years. Without, and the government is asking you to make that decision without government oversight. Okay, we're increasing the value, reducing the oversight, and we just do what you can do. So again, I'm not going to get into labeling an unelected bureaucratic. I have more respect for the individuals, a lot of great people sitting right there, and a lot of people helping kids, helping families. And I fully support that. But we need to have a little bit of evidence here. Something for me to embrace this, to say, taxpayer, just when you see that on the ballot, just vote on it, let's commit, and we'll sort everything out later on. I don't have that level. And as you know, I've asked you for a little time when we spoke, and I have been utilizing that time. The feedback that I've gotten from the not selected sources, not appointed sources, just individuals talking about the scenario, it has not been all that favorable in support. Okay? And I'm being very, very honest. I'm doing it in a little different methodology than was presented to me. I read the packet. There's different ways to get information, and sometimes that approach of the 1 through 5 weighted is appropriate. sometimes it's not, or you're more than likely or likely. There are ways to get your information together, and that was appropriate. My technique is a little different, and the feedback wasn't good. Now, I feel in talking with individuals, perhaps maybe that can change. There could be an adjustment, and just to say straight out, supportable if the number was way lower. That can be that can be adjusted upward, but not to come in for an additional $7 million to, I mean, that is huge. It is huge. And I caution myself when I say huge, it's a huge amount of money. But if there is $7 million worth of need, it's not a lot of money. It's pennies if there's $7 million worth of need. I think we need a little evidence, a little picture. I was surprised that this was on the ballot. I know I got a phone call from one of you that stated clearly that you were taken by surprise as well. That's good. I'm glad that you didn't want to put on the agenda that I'm just referring to one member of the committee that stated they were surprised. Well, I think it's a bit too soon. I think more talk has to be done. I think more justification, quantification has to be established in order for me to feel that confident that we need to knock on the doors for a few $100s each household. So I think this is a bit too soon, and not saying that it's not important, just that we don't have it all together yet. So to direct staff to go forward and review and make the wording, and it sounds like we're there already. Okay, and if we count to 3 and we're there. I just want it known that I wasn't complete yet. I wanted more time.
So if I can just address some of the comments that I've heard from my fellow commissioners. My understanding, and Commissioner O'Brien, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're asking for the conversations that everybody seems to be wanting to happen to officially take place, as far as the group that's been working on this and county staff to kind of work on the proposal versus the issues that staff and the commissioners have, and bring something back that we can have a very robust discussion on. You were seeking initial input. Is that correct? So I don't know if that helps you and your sense of where we are in the process, but my understanding is what we are trying to do, or being asked to do today, is to direct staff and the group that's proposing the referendum to get together to address and some of those issues that you're saying, but also to give that time. This is the time to start doing that. So
I didn't hear that in the motion. I mean that in all fairness. I did not hear that in the motion. I felt the motion was far more assertive and direct. And if you want to repeat the motion, if I didn't hear it right, it's okay. I'll admit that. But
Well, I would like to have staff bring it back in a public hearing so that we can have the discussion, have a vote, and have all that.
But I thought it was about directing staff to take the draft and.
And any of the comments that they heard from the commission today. So, and I'll apologize. One, maybe I wasn't clear enough, but I heard both unaccountable bureaucracy and lack of oversight. Structurally, this will function exactly like our Children's Services does right now. The board is advisory. The ultimate decision comes to the Board of County Commissioners. So, it would be like if you think the current CSAC is unaccountable and no oversight, then I think that's a wrong position, because I think we do have oversight. And this would be set up exactly the same way. They are advisory to the Board of County Commissioners. The final vote on the funding allocation is the 5 of us sitting right here.
Advisory.
They are advisory to the Board of County Commissioners. So we would have the ultimate final vote over the funding allocations, just like we do today.
And that's what the draft, because we're only at a draft level, ordinance speaks to the newly created committee being advisory to the county commission. So whatever they would approve, as it's currently written, and I understand that we will be having input and things will change, but currently, they would make a recommendation to the commission. The commission would have to approve that, just like we do with TDC or with CSAC, as far as the allocation of funding in the budget process. That's my understanding of how it would work. As far as the makeup of the board, as proposed, I think that it could probably be tightened up a little bit, but I would not support the MPO model only because this is a board, again, functioning exactly like the current CSAC, only with a dedicated millage source for it that would not come out of our general fund. So you need the experts in the field of children's services, just like on TDC, you need the experts in the field of tourism to ensure that you're allocating and expending those monies on appropriate programs, and that you have the expertise on that board to make sure that those programs are being vetted and that they have the deliverables and the measurable outcomes that are appropriate for the expenditure of such funds. So I'm happy to have a discussion and a proposal when this comes back that might add or subtract some of those representatives, but I don't think that we need representatives from all the municipalities and things of that nature, because it misses the point of trying to create a board of experts, if you will, in children's services and children's programming.
Madam Chair? And maybe this ties in with Commissioner Flesher's, some of the things he said. You know, if we have this, bring this back and it's a public hearing, it's part of an agenda filled with 20 other items. Would a workshop only on this millage request really give it the attention that we need, and we don't have anything else to deal with except discussion of that item?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe a well-attended workshop with the electorate is, or as many citizens in the community, not directed citizens. I mean, a well-attended public meeting with general discussion, a good cross-section of our community with us in a workshop is probably the most appropriate. Again, I'm in full disclosure, I said the conversations I've had have not been favorable, okay? That doesn't mean that I've spoken to the right people. I'll give you that. The reflection of the numbers that you've presented have been favorable. Were the right people polled? I don't want this thing to, if it's intended to succeed, I want it to succeed. If it's justified, if it's quantified, if it's going to be the best for our community, for the citizenry, fully supportable. I don't know if we know that yet. And I think in a workshop, we could know that. The downside to the workshop is we can't vote. So we would have to then send it back, a follow-up. The workshop, we'd have to bring it back here and then have this vote that we're doing today much more solidly, with more foundation, information, and understanding with the community, other than printed document or idle conversations that I or any other commissioner may be hearing. So I think it's probably one of the better solutions to the challenges and would give me a far better comfort zone. It might even get another person in a better comfort zone and give this the credit in which it deserves and give more support from the board, if it doesn't already exist.
Jason, is a workshop as proposed an option? What were you?
I think we have the option of a workshop. You know, we can do that at any time. I think, as Commissioner Fletcher mentioned, it's a good way to have community discussion on some issues, which you know, I've made it clear I have some questions that I would like to delve into a little bit more deeply. However, as Commissioner Fletcher mentioned, you can't take a vote at it, but you can get the input at the workshop, and then it's basically another step in the process. Then staff would bring something back to the board after that.
Okay, and my understanding, Commissioner O'Brien, is that you wanted to start the process, so if there was an extra step.
Yeah, I have no problem having it come back in a workshop setting first. I can amend my motion to reflect that.
And I'll be happy to amend my second. Commissioner Solari, I know you love workshops, but in an effort.
There's no doubt that this item's important enough to warrant a workshop, and so there's
Okay.
no issue with that. I think it's a well thought out, good next step.
Thank you, Commissioner Zort, for that suggestion.
So, and thank you for the clarification on the workshop. So we will work together to schedule a workshop. From the direction of what I heard from the motion was County Attorney's Office was going to be drafting up the papers. It was going to reflect the discussion we've had on the dais and also include a 15-year cap or time frame limit on the proposal. Some of the things I've heard of on the dais are issues such as the dollar number or the dollar or the number for the millage. Issues I've heard on the dais were the makeup of the committee. And then finally, issues that I heard were about the sort of authorities and duties of the committee. So if that's the will of the board with the motion, certainly I can work with Jason and staff on addressing those issues in the context of the first draft that we work up as we go into a workshop. And please, board, let me know if I've not accurately reflected the motion that was made.
I'll be happy to give Jason a copy of my notes so he gets them down right.
For me, I think,
Are those going to be laminated again?
No, I'll take them out of the sleeves for Jason.
Commissioner O'Brien, is that
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's fine. I appreciate all the comments and look forward to continued discussion. And I do believe this is a very important step we're taking. And so if it gives the board a little bit more comfort to have a workshop and share more information, certainly that's a good way to go.
And if I could just ask the group, would you guys be able to attend said workshop and bring the data? And that, I think that would be the appropriate time at that point.
Of course, yeah, we would welcome that, and I just wanted to kind of clarify that, maybe our being novices to the process and understanding the purpose of this meeting, that we are confident we have the data to present, and thought it was appropriate that would be coming after this meeting anyway, so it sounds like the workshop would be the perfect
Where
place
you've
for us
landed
to-
is where we assumed was the next step, regardless of what the forum is. Yeah, you want to see demonstrated need, we're going to demonstrate the need.
Okay.
And any of the other issues that we've talked about.
Well, sometimes it takes us a while, but we eventually get close to the right spot, hopefully.
Well, we're not, she said it, we're political novices when it comes to procedure. So you've landed where we thought was going to be a next step. I'm almost say it out loud, almost bothered by, Dylan, go write this for them. Well, we need to have some discussion, and that's what we thought was going to happen now, and we'll get more documents. It'll become part of the record for the workshop.
Fantastic. Commissioner Solari?
I would ask if you had meaningful information that you're going to present at the workshop, that if you get it to us ahead of time, so we'd actually have a chance to read it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Zito.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. Just a couple of housekeeping matters to bring to your attention. On the 21st, it's staff's intention to bring its annual report from the Human Services Division. That is not in response to this item, but as our annual due date for the annual report on the existing system. And
Okay.
there's also a funded needs assessment in progress at the moment.
Okay. So maybe we can just kind of roll it. All right.
What-
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Of course.
when is the needs assessment is still? That's the renewal. It's getting close, it's
It's a,
Still a work in progress.
work in progress.
I think, yeah.
I mean, so, because that could answer some quantifiable information that I referred to several times today. I believe it would be a great benefit.
Sure. We will certainly make sure that whatever information is available at the time that the workshop is scheduled, that that's all presented, both from the different funding groups that I know have quantifiable data because of their review process, the current CSAC, and any needs assessment information that's available. So we all have as much information as possible to have a very robust discussion on this issue moving forward and give it the time that it needs. Did you have anything else to add?
I don't know if, kind of what the, I guess, timeline, if you know that at this point, or you'll go back and look at calendars.
What we'll do is look at the calendars and try to figure out a date that's available, that the room is open, and then we'll coordinate with everybody to let you know, and we'll give, it's not gonna be this week, I can tell you that. So you at least have that assurance. Yes.
All right, great.
All right. If there's nothing else on this issue right now, we do have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by myself. I think we've gone over the motion multiple times and everybody's clear on that. So with that, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Solari dissenting. All right.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you. While I know we've had lots of robust dialogue, our next item on the agenda is Commissioners' Open Dialogue. And I'll just start since everybody's leaving. They don't want to hear me anyway.
Stay for the good stuff.
But I wanted to let you guys know that we did have, we've had enough frogs today too. We did have our first census meeting, so that process is off and running. I appreciate staff and the members of everybody that worked on that. I'll keep you all apprised of that process as we move forward. But there were some really good ideas that were shared, and we will have our first event or census outreach at the Frog Leg Festival, so hopefully we'll be able to get a good count and leverage some federal and state monies for the county. Commissioner Zork, do you have anything?
Actually, I think I'll pass today in the essence of time, and
All right, well, that is fine. Commissioner Fletcher,
We had a lot of robust conversation there, and I
you're good to go?
clearly do the same
Okay.
thing.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Friday, I was in Tallahassee for a meeting of the Florida Regional Council Association, and a presentation by the Florida Chamber had one real interesting fact, I thought. Florida's growing about 900 people a day. About half that population is working age people. The other half is retirees and older. But the working folks, the salaries and the jobs that they're bringing into the state of Florida is $1 million of salary per hour, every hour of every day. So it's a big economic impact to the people coming in. And the data I want to get from them too is, okay, what about all those retirees? You know, how much social security and 401k and pension payments are coming into the economy as well. But I thought that was $1 million per hour per day.
That's a lot of
Every
money.
day, yeah.
Commissioner Solari.
Madam Chair, this has always been a dilemma in the past. You know, I know that most of my fellow commissioners are a lot more exciting about open dialogue than I've been. I understand that they find things like a lot of committee meetings and county conferences a lot more exciting than I do. Some of them even find football games exciting and something worth watching or spending their time. So over the holidays, I racked my brains to try to figure out how I could actually contribute to this open dialogue, and suddenly it came to me. While they're watching football or cutting frog legs, I'm often reading about American history, especially the great stuff about our founding period. Just as they seem to find watching sports to be exciting, I find that reading a great biography about our founding fathers to be terrific stuff. And heck, you can never learn too much about our founding fathers. So, something about the founding period. John Adams wrote to Thomas Jefferson, "What do we mean by the Revolution? The war? No, that was no part of the Revolution. It was only an effect and consequence of it. The Revolution was in the minds of the people, and this was effected from 1760 to 1775 in the course of the 15 years before a drop of blood was shed at Lexington. It was during this period, from 1760 to 1775, that the ideology of the Revolution was developed, discussed, and spread through the 13 colonies. Few did more to develop and promote the new liberty-based ideology of the now slowly forming American nation than the lawyer John Dickerson. His main vehicle for doing this was a set of 12 letters from a farmer in Pennsylvania. The letters were published in the weekly Pennsylvania Chronicle and Universal Advertiser beginning November 30th, 1767. They were soon republished in the newspapers across the colonies and in pamphlet form on both sides of the Atlantic. As historian Forrest McDonald notes, their impact and their circulation were unapproached by any publication of the Revolutionary period except Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Those familiar with ferroelectric issue will be familiar with one of the sound bites that Dickinson helped to make famous: no taxation without representation. I'll finish with a slight epilogue to our earlier train discussion. It was noted that the City Council found out that getting Senator Mayfield's safety bill passed in the Florida legislature would be difficult. And indeed, Senator Mayfield said that the legislation would be difficult to pass. The council found the fact that the passage of this crucial safety legislation would be difficult as a reason not to go forward with supporting it. Our founders' response to the most powerful empire at the time of our founding was fortunately different. As Dickerson wrote in the third letter from a Pennsylvania farmer, quote, "Great Britain, they say, is too powerful to contend with. She is determined to oppress us. It is in vain to speak of right on one side when there is power on the other. If the founders were cut from the same cloth as the City Council, we would still today be colonies of Britain. Fortunately for us, they were made of sterner stuff." Thank you.
Thank you. I do always appreciate historic moments with Commissioner Solari.
Well, you've got
and
rough-
how you tied it into
You've got roughly 8
current-
more to go.
Yes,
Well, you wanted the open dialogue.
I did,
You
and I
know, you
enjoy it.
opened
We
the
learn
door.
something new every day. All right.
Motion to
Move
approve.
to approve the solid waste minutes of September 10 and
There is an
October 8.
amendment about the,
Was that a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, second. We
there
have
is a-
a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I was just following through there because it's very interesting.
He does come up with interesting stuff. We'll keep him around for a little bit.
Move approval of staff recommendation for transport of recyclables to St. Lucie County landfill.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.